Welcome to Racism is Real, where we tackle the urgent realities
Everyone,
of
welcome
racism
to the
in our
Racism
society.
is Real
In this
podcast.
series, we explore the systems of oppression that continue to harm marginalized communities and the movements working to create change. Through powerful conversations with activists, educators, and thought leaders, we aim to uncover the truth and take steps towards justice.
I jumped the gun a little bit, but hi everyone. Welcome to the Racism is Real series. I would like our guests to introduce themselves first before we get started.
All right, I am Calenthia Dowdy, and I am with the Roots of Justice training team, anti-racism training team. I'm also a cultural anthropologist, and I work in health, actually. But this topic is very near and dear to my heart. I'm glad to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Misha Lorato, and Misha means she who lives, and Lorato means love, and that's my North Star. I am a social entrepreneur and a curator of transformative places and spaces. The two platforms that I use to do that right now are my nonprofit that I founded, I Am We Are, which works to help young people transform and thrive in this ever-changing world. And then I also do DEI work as well. And I'm so glad to be here with all of y'all today.
I'm so happy that y'all are here as well. My name is Brianna Fuel. I am a senior computer science major at Spelman College, and I am so glad to be a part of this conversation because today, thank you. Today, we are going to be talking about the Black Exodus leaving the US for better lives abroad. We're going to jump into our first question. What does it reveal about the toll of simply existing as a Black person in America when generations of Black Americans feel that the only way to breathe freely is to leave the US?
This is a great question, and I just want to jump in here to say that this whole idea of a Black exodus, of a need to, and I say need, to leave the U.S. is not new. We have had Black exoduses for years as Black people in this country. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this idea of leaving, of Black folks leaving a part of the U.S. or leaving the U.S. completely for a better way of life, whether it's all of the things, right? Whether it's social, political, economic, people looking for better jobs. It's not a new dynamic, but what's happening now is quite new and exciting, I think. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes. So I live in South Africa right now. The first time I left the U.S. was right after I finished my undergraduate studies. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Benin, West Africa, and since then I have traveled to about 52 countries, and I've lived in 3. And I just want to. When I read this question and just when hearing you say it, it hurt my soul. And it's like, I recognize, I feel that when I get on that plane and when I get off, I can feel the stress, I can feel the fatigue, I can feel the wear and tear just sort of melt off of me. And I truly can feel that I can breathe. And it's interesting. It's like, for me in particular, living on the continent and even in a country that struggles with a similar history as the US, I truly came to understand, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to have dignity? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a person? Not a Black person, but a person, my personhood. I did not understand what that meant until I left the US and I actually got to live somewhere. And it's amazing because as soon as I get back on that plane, as soon as I'm in the waiting area in the airport, I feel Black again. And I feel the heaviness, I feel the weight, and I already get tired as soon as I think about going back to the States, and I know I have to almost slip into an outfit And it's like, okay, get ready to be Black. And I don't think, and I'm still healing from that. I'm still understanding what that means. And especially I was living in Mexico last year. It was just so interesting to be in a community and just recognize all of the Black people around. We didn't know that we left the US for healing, but most people left right in 2020 during COVID, during the Black Lives Matter protests, after the killing of our brother George Floyd, and they couldn't take it anymore. And I think in that reality of like, I can't take it anymore. I want to put this down. I'm tired. Like when we say tired and like the rest that we need as a people, I feel that when I'm talking to people that are expats and we talk about what we feel now that we left and what we're still grappling to like unwrap and understand. Yeah.
I have a question for you, furthering your conversation that you just started. What do you think is the cause of that subliminal yet noticeable feeling that you feel when you're in the airport, whether it be leaving the United States or coming back?
I'm back with Americans. I'm back with Americans. I attended a protest here in South Africa at the American Embassy. We're resting right now, so I happen to only be the only Black person, Black American there. It was a small group of us, but just being in that small community of like 10 white Americans, and even white Americans that have not lived in the States for a while, the whiteness of it, I felt it and I was like, ooh, I don't want to be here. Let me turn around and exit stage left. Like, I remember what this feels like, and I don't want to be in this. And so there is something even about my good liberal whiteness that is still whiteness, that I just, that's what it comes to for me, and that we are constantly navigating whiteness. And I think, again, here, like, yes, South Africa has the same history. Whiteness here is a whole nother level of entitlement and audacity and arrogance that is mind-blowing, but they're in the minority. They're in the minority. So I can just go like this and be like, I can't do that in the States. It's everywhere. And it's a constant navigation. It's a constant, like, it's a constant assault on my soul. It's a constant assault on my personhood, my dignity, and my worthiness.
I understand that. Okay, moving on to the second question. How do we reconcile the romanticism of returning to the motherland with the realities of global anti-Blackness and the complexity of Pan-African identity?
You want me to go first, Colinthia?
You go for it, yeah.
You know what? So I love this question because when people are like, oh my gosh, you're in the motherland, and and especially like, my hoteps, and I live, I remember the first time when I first came to Africa, as a Peace Corps volunteer. And as a Peace Corps volunteer, I'm living on a whole different level than the level that I live at now. And I just remember being like, mm-mm. And I was a very pro-Black. I was wearing African clothes every single day when I went to Benin, and I just literally hadn't like wait, this isn't what I expected. So I think I love the fact of just really owning the fact, first and foremost, that we romanticize this returning to the motherland. And like, there is something to me of like, we couldn't all have been kings and queens, like, just that reality of just like, we could have just been regular people. So I think with that said, colonialization is also a really real thing on the continent. And so, I've had this conversation recently with somebody just around like Pan-Africanism and sort of who believes in it and it doesn't. And I think, I was on the continent here in South Africa during the election, and just, it was amazing to me how many pro-Trump, how many very conservative people that I encountered. And I was like, wait, the rhetoric that they were spouting is the rhetoric that I would have traditionally heard from conservative white Americans. And that to me, just, it impressed upon me the power of colonialization. And so I guess when I think about that question of a Pan-African identity, I think it's also reality check for us as Americans to also recognize we're not always going to be welcomed because we're still American. We're not always going to be like, oh, you're my sister, my brother. And that is a reality a lot of the time, but it may not also be real. And that even though you may look like me, just as much as we experience it in the States, you may not have the same belief system as me. And colonialization and what that looks like on the continent, and just even what, just that like, identifying what we would say is like identifying with a lot of like a whiteness, and that white is better and these things, it's a real thing. And so I think that's something I've had to grapple with just recently, especially based on class and education and the people who I'm around. But it doesn't take away from sort of my love of being on the continent. It doesn't take away from my love of my people, or also just sort of the unique experience that I have of like, there's something unique about being on the continent, but I also have to just reconcile with the fact of like, okay, but it's not this romanticized thing that we've made it to be in the US as well.
Right. I spent a semester in South Africa, in the Rustenburg area mostly, and quickly, is that where you are? You're not in Rustenburg, are you?
That's where I've been for the last 10 years. I didn't know you were there. Okay, sorry.
Oh my gosh. So, but the thing was that whole romantic idea left me very quickly, right? I mean, because from the time I got off the ground, I was like, yes, I am in. And that was actually my first trip anywhere on the continent. But some of the things that white South Africans said to me, one, and Misha, maybe you can check me on this, but they seem to view me as a little bit differently because I was a Black American, right? So you got that American piece. But they also felt that they could say things to me about Black South Africans that was okay, you know. I remember talking with a white person who owned an internet cafe, and they were saying, "Oh, you're living with a Black family?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, how is it? Because you know, they eat the bones, they eat everything." I mean, just some of the racist things that were said to me about Black South Africans. One, that blew my mind, but also sometimes about Black Americans, you know. So the romanticism is real, but and it goes away quickly. However, it says something, I think, about racism in the U.S., where many Black folks I know who are living in other countries are okay with dealing with whatever they may have to deal with there as it relates to racism, because it's different from how we experience it here, you know, and that says a lot to me. It's like, so yeah, the romanticism leaves quickly, and reality can smack you in the face, I found. But yeah, the white folks in South Africa were interesting. Yeah.
They girl, special breed. And a plane of them just came to the US. They just left South Africa this evening as refugees. So good luck with that. But but can I also just say that I think for me, when I got rid of the romanticism of the motherland, I also had this beautiful embrace of my history as a Black American. I don't need to go, not that I don't connect myself with the continent and that my people came from the continent, but I have a deep, deep, deep pride in my experience in the US and what my people and my ancestors and my culture created. And I think when we don't have to go all the way back to Africa and back to Egypt to have pride. We have done so much in the US, and I wish we could exalt that to the same level that we do sort of this motherland persona and romanticism that we've also created as a narrative.
I want to circle back on something that you had said. I think it was a couple of years ago, my mom had told me, I was telling her a story about how someone I didn't even know came to me and started talking bad about someone I knew to me. And I was like, that was kind of weird that they felt comfortable enough to talk to me about someone that I know badly, poorly. And it's probably because they felt comfortable with me or they related with me. My question for you is, do you think that the white South Africans found a way to relate with you in order to feel comfortable enough to tell you something bad about the Black South Africans?
I mean, we're American, and that gives you a little something. That blue passport gives you a little something. Yeah, I think they just felt you're not the same kind of Black, and they felt that they could say whatever they wanted. I think I was more shocked that they thought I would kind of co-sign, and I was like, wait, what are you saying here? So yeah, that's always a strange query because you're like, is it me? Why do they feel they can say that to me? What is it about me? Yeah, but I think it's the American piece for sure.
I've found, I think we don't bring shame and guilt. I think that white fragility and that white guilt is a real thing, because I
Yeah.
also feel like Africans in the US, I I assume, I may be incorrect, but not the same experience, but that similar experience like I had in Rustenburg as well. Someone said to me, "Well, if the Black people here spoke English like you, it'd be so much easier to get along with them." And I was like, "Huh?" And he told me, "You speak English so well," and I was like, "Thanks." Kind of my first language, but it's that same lack of awareness and understanding of like what your comments actually mean that we would get in general. But I just think like, okay, I'm a good Black, like I'm a safe Black, like you feel like you hear me speak English in a certain way that's closer to how you speak it, and then you also feel this sort of like I'm educated, I'm whatever, this American sort of personification because it comes with something, but I don't have any guilt or shame. You historically haven't done anything to me, so
Yeah.
you feel like a kinship almost that you can connect in it, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That American exceptionalism is strong and frightening. It really is.
It looks like we have a couple of comments in the chat, so I'll have our tech choose which one we're going to go first. So it says there's a difference between cultures, even though there is a connection in some ways. So I think this goes back to us. In the end, we're all human beings, but we all share some part of us because we all came from the same place. There's another comment saying, "How is the connection to being American, but very prevalent?" Sorry, how is there a connection to being American, but a very prevalent anti-Blackness that seems global? Can you all answer that one?
Mm.
I experienced this weekend, y'all. This weekend, I was driving, and there was a older white lady running with her dog in the street, and I stayed in my lane, and I didn't swerve around her at the stop sign and like be in the middle of the street. And she yelled at me and told me off for driving properly, in my perspective. But to me, she felt the ability to do that because I was Black. So that's an instance where she sees my color. She has an expectation of of who she is and how I should behave because of that. Um, so I think
Yeah.
anti-Blackness is just a real thing, but my accent does, when people hear me, I recognize that I do get treated differently. So for me, that's when I also have to recognize I have to check my privilege, and how can I use my privilege as an American in these spaces to help open up the space for other Black South Africans or even Black people from other countries here that definitely get treated worse than I do as a foreigner, the Congolese, the Zimbabweans, Malay, from other countries. So how can I use my privilege? But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still Black. So if I keep my mouth shut, I'm still going to get treated like any other Black person here.
Yeah. I think for me, yeah, anti-Blackness is real. It's rarely shocking, but it's more painful for me when I experience it from the global diaspora. Um, I have been in situations, I've traveled with white Americans and have watched Black folks in other countries treat the white Americans far better than they treated Black Americans, which is painful. And so, I mean, that anti-Blackness, and this is the thing we don't like to talk about, is it impacts us too. right? I mean, if we haven't learned to love ourselves, the diaspora, if we haven't learned to love ourselves in very profound ways, um, we're not going to move very far in this battle. So I think it's far more painful for me when I experience the anti-Blackness from other Black folks, no matter where they are. Um, I don't expect a whole lot from white people, no matter where they are.
But can I also say, I think there's a lot of places in the world where I feel like as a Black person, it's easier for me to navigate than I feel like white people. And I actually have been in them groups before, and I'm like, I need y'all to be over there because there's a different sort of reaction that y'all are getting than I get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I can blend in with cultures, and there's a certain like, okay, we feel this way about Americans, but Black people, you're cool. And so there is some understanding that I've also experienced around the world where they understand our history as Black Americans. And so we get treated differently than a typical white American would. So I don't know, I call it out. Like I still at the end of the day, I love being Black and I love traveling as a Black person. The anti-Black, it's okay. It's a rounding error.
Absolutely, absolutely, no doubt. I mean, I experienced. I lived in Rio de Janeiro for a year, and one of the people was saying, "Aren't you afraid in the favelas?" And no, the favelas were actually, for me, they felt like some of the safest places to be. And I realized that is because I am a Black person. If I didn't open my mouth, I'd be a Black Brazilian, you know. So I get it. You're absolutely right on point with that, Misha. But both those realities exist, you know, and one is just particularly painful. So yeah.
Thank you, ladies. So someone did some math for us in the comments. I'll have the tech person pull them up as I read them. What will happen to the United States if Blacks disappear? The number of prisoners will be reduced by 48%. The number of gangs and other criminal groups will be reduced by 53%. The country's average IQ will grow by 7.4%. The number of AIDS patients will be reduced by 65%. The number of patients with chlamydia will decrease by 59%. The number of patients with gonorrhea will decrease by 69%. The number of patients with syphilis will decrease by 57%. The number of people living in poverty will be reduced by 54%. And finally, the number of homeless people will be reduced to 65%. The number of welfare recipients will be reduced to 52%. And I appreciate this person recognizing that African Americans make up the underprivileged, or at least most of them. And it's conversations like this that make those statistics better. So we're going to move on to the third question. What would a Black person need to unlearn, prepare for, or confront within themselves in order to not just move abroad, but truly live abroad with a sense of peace, freedom, and freedom within and belonging?
Cynthia, did you want to?
That's a fantastic question. I'm thinking about that one. What would a Black person need to unlearn, prepare for, or confront within themselves in order to not just move abroad, but truly live abroad with a sense of peace, freedom within, and belonging?
I'll jump in first, and Cynthia. So
okay, go ahead.
Can I tell you? This is a whole testimony for me. This is a whole testimony because I do feel free. I do feel peace. And can I say I have joy? I have joy, but I've been working on this. So I think first and foremost, healing. No matter where you go, there you are. So it takes healing. Like when Colinthia talks about the pain of dealing with racism and dealing with anti-Blackness, we've been dealing with that our whole lives. And travel isn't just going to magically solve that for you because you changed your location. So it starts even with that healing work that we can do now in our own backyards and our own communities. So I start with that first and foremost. So I just recognize, like, I saw a holistic doctor here, and he looked in my eyes, and I forget, there's a name for that science, but he was like, "You've experienced a lot of trauma," and it hit me so hard. He was like, "You've experienced so much trauma, your body doesn't even have the capacity to digest it anymore." Right. And I thought about that, and I started asking him about generational trauma versus personal trauma. And so I just like the trauma that we have experienced as a people is so tangible and so real. And I think you can taste it more once you remove yourself in the environment. But there is stuff and there are tools available, so many much more today to help us be able to process that. And then I also think we also recognizing growing up in that system, we drink racism on a daily basis. It's something that we ingest, all of us. And so we have the colonizer in us as much as the colonized. And I think in particular, you talk about that American exceptionalism. And for me, that comes with a level of arrogance. And I know, Calintha, you've been on trips, you said these group trips, and there's a way that as Americans, we've been taught to think about the rest of the world. And I think we owe it, in particular, if we're going to the continent, so we don't go and show up as a colonizer ourselves, that it's a daily practice of really working to understand, what that looks like, and checking yourself and how you look at the rest of the world. And so I've seen it so much when I do groups, and I think part of it, and really just understanding sort of that some of that arrogance that we have as Americans, I own it as well, is just recognizing that there is more than one way to live. There is more than one culture. Like, the way we live is not the best way to live. We are not the best in the number one country in the world. And so, just small stuff like when I lived in Mexico, like you don't flush toilet paper and people are like, oh my gosh, how can you live there? That's just so nasty and but I also traveled in sort of like North Africa, and they give you a teapot with water, and they thought it was disgusting that people use toilet paper. Like, they were appalled. So just and I've been to Japan, and they've got these heated toilets, and they've got bidets and things like that, bidets in public restrooms. And so just recognizing that the way we live, the way we do things is a way, but not the way, and being open to other ways of living, open to other ways of seeing the world, and constantly sort of just recognizing, like, okay, this is a learning opportunity to be curious about why people do things differently than how we do it, and constantly just asking questions. And then I think my only other thing I want to beg of Americans, and I don't know how much longer we'll be able to say this, but yes, the dollar is powerful in a lot of places in the world, but that also not our entry point to just go around the world and floss. And also, one, I think there's a power of just like the dollar. And so we're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go and buy bottles and I'm gonna do this and this. But I also think there's a culture now of flossing for the gram. And so I think really, if you really want to have that true sense of peace and freedom and belonging, it's about you as an individual, not you as sort of showing up for other people in this experience, and really taking the time again to be curious and connect and understand, and be with the community.
Yeah, I think you said it all. That healing piece is a central piece, because until that trauma that you're talking about, where the doctor looked into your eyes, that's powerful. And sometimes we don't know how impacted we've been by racism. We know it, but we don't know how deeply. And so, yeah, I definitely agree that healing is the first step to being able to make a move to another location.
We have two comments that are just affirmations that I'll show before I close out. The first one is, I love the way y'all address that person. Let's not give weight to the tone, but truly address that there are systemic issues that affect marginalized communities disproportionately. And that is so hard to accept, that we have both the colonizer and the colonized within ourselves as American. But this is a dynamic point. Excellent way to state that. I really enjoyed this conversation. Some takeaways that I got is that the Black exodus is not new regarding social or political or economic anything. We all had to migrate at some point. We really want to focus on the feeling of freedom. We're still navigating being American, even though we're from here, and we still have that feeling of freedom in foreign spaces, even though there's no guarantee that our life is better in those other places where we had talked about romanticizing the motherland and things like that. Our goal in the end is to find ourselves and love our people no matter where we are, without guilt and with open heart and open mind. So, ladies, thank you so much for coming here today. May you please let everyone who is watching know how they can get in touch with you if they have further questions or want to continue the conversation.
You can reach me at crossingbridges5@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And you can reach me at info@imweareyouth.org.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, ladies, so much. I enjoyed this conversation, and that concludes our session.
Right.
Thank you.
That's all for today's conversation on Racism is Real. Thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their insights, and thank you for tuning in. Remember, awareness is the first step, but action is where the change happens. If you found today's discussion valuable, this series will return every second Tuesday evening. Also, be sure to check out our website and follow us for more information and topics like these. And consider making a donation to support our work. Together, we can challenge systems of oppression and work toward a more just future. See you next time.